When you no longer feel like yourself, it always began at the same time. 3:12 a.m. Frank would wake up in the silence of his one-bedroom home just outside Des Moines. There was no noise, no dream, just a dull, persistent pressure low in his belly that stirred him from sleep. He would lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to name the feeling. Was it his bladder, his back, or something deeper? At 74, Frank had lived a full life, served in the Navy, raised 2 boys, lost his wife to cancer, and learned how to cook for one. He wasn't afraid of hardship, but this quiet unraveling of his body felt different. It wasn't painful. Not yet, but it was unsettling, subtle, like a whisper in the night saying, "Pay attention." He didn't talk about it. Most men don't. You learn to live with the strange twinges, the slower stream in the bathroom, the interrupted sleep. You call it aging, as if that makes it easier. But inside, a question begins to grow. Is this normal? Is this okay? Maybe you felt it too. The way your legs hesitate before stepping onto cold kitchen tiles. The way your body sometimes forgets how it used to feel. Strong, predictable, familiar. It's not about vanity. It's about trust. And when your body starts behaving like a stranger, that trust begins to erode. Today, we begin a conversation that few are willing to have, but one that could change the way you see yourself. We're going to talk about the prostate, and more specifically, about a habit many men carry in silence, daily masturbation, and how it might be playing a role you never expected. Not as a vice, not as a taboo, but as a quiet ally in the fight to feel whole again. You see, this isn't about sex. It's about your health, your sleep, your sense of control, and yes, your dignity. Because that small, walnut-sized gland, tucked away deep in your body, has more influence over your energy, your emotions, and your morning routines than you might think. It's connected to your hormones, your bladder, your nervous system, woven into everything from your mood to your sense of balance. And yet we rarely talk about it until something goes terribly wrong. But what if the warning signs are already there? What if your body is trying to tell you something, not through pain, but through subtle shifts in how you feel, how you move, and how you sleep? This video isn't here to sell you a cure. It's not about magic pills or dramatic treatments. It's about something better, understanding. Small changes, no prescriptions needed, just a deeper awareness of the rhythms inside your body. And it begins with a simple truth. You know your body better than anyone. You've lived in it for decades. You can feel when something's off, even if you can't explain it yet. So let's start there. With Frank, and with the quiet, remarkable story of how daily habits, when understood with care, can shape the way we age. This might just be the most personal journey you'll take, but you won't be alone. The prostate, a tiny gland with tremendous power. Most men have never seen their prostate. Fewer still understand what it actually does. And yet, this tiny gland, no bigger than a walnut, is responsible for some of the most intimate and essential functions in your entire body. It wraps around the urethra like a hidden ring just below the bladder, quietly managing the flow of urine and semen. When you're young, it rarely calls attention to itself. But as you age, something begins to change. Slowly, gradually, silently. The balance of hormones in your body begins to shift, and the prostate, so sensitive to these changes, starts to grow. Uncle Ray never gave it much thought. He was 78, still mowing his own lawn, still making his signature pork chops every Sunday. But recently, something had changed. He noticed it first in the middle of the night, waking up 2-3 times to use the bathroom. Then it became harder to start the stream. Then came the hesitation, the urgency, the small accidents. "I just figured it was part of getting old," he said. He didn't know that his prostate had enlarged so much that it was pressing against his urethra, like stepping on a garden hose, and slowly taking away his comfort, his sleep, and eventually his confidence. And Uncle Ray isn't alone. By age 60, over half of men have signs of an enlarged prostate. By 85, that number climbs above 90%. But here's the truth that no one tells you. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to wake up every night thinking, "This is just the way it is now." There are natural ways, simple habits, foods, and movements that can support your prostate health and slow the changes before they steal your peace of mind. But first, you have to understand, the prostate is not your enemy. It's not some malfunctioning part to be feared. It's a messenger, and when it begins to act up through discomfort, urgency, or broken sleep, it's not betraying you, it's asking for help. You can respond with awareness, with gentle care, not with panic, not with pills, but with a shift in how you live, how you eat, and how you listen. The men who take that path, like Uncle Ray, often rediscover something they thought they had lost, a sense of control over their own body, a return of steady mornings, confidence when going out, even restful, uninterrupted sleep. Because when you care for your prostate, you're not just fixing one part of your body, you're restoring the balance of everything around it, your bladder, your hormones, your mood, and your freedom. And that begins, strangely enough, with something most men avoid talking about. Something that might feel awkward to say, but natural to feel. Let's go there now. Let's talk about masturbation. But not the way you think. The hidden power of a private habit. Let's talk about something most men were taught to ignore, hide, or feel ashamed of. Let's talk about masturbation, not as a joke, not as a guilty habit, but as a biological function, a natural, often overlooked act of self-care that may be more important than anyone ever told you. Carl, 67, used to avoid this conversation at all costs, even with himself. After his wife passed, he found himself lost, not just emotionally, but physically. He still cooked dinner for two out of habit, still folded the empty side of the bed, and when it came to sexual release, he felt conflicted. Was it wrong? Was it selfish? Was it even necessary anymore? But something unexpected happened. During a routine visit, his doctor mentioned a study, one that suggested a link between regular ejaculation and lower risk of prostate complications. Not pills, not surgery, not hormone therapy. Just a habit he'd already known intimately for decades. Carl went home that night and read everything he could find, and what he found surprised him. One study from Harvard tracked nearly 30,000 men over the course of years. It found that those who ejaculated more frequently, around 21 times a month, had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer later in life. No prescriptions needed, just the body doing what it was designed to do. But this wasn't just about cancer prevention. It was about flow, hormones, pressure, balance. You see, each time you ejaculate, your body temporarily reduces levels of a hormone called DHT, a powerful derivative of testosterone. This hormone, when elevated, can overstimulate the prostate and contribute to its enlargement. That dull pressure in the lower abdomen, the sluggish stream in the bathroom, they're not just annoyances. They could be signs of a gland overwhelmed by too much stimulation for too long. Daily ejaculation, whether through intimacy or self-stimulation, offers a small momentary pause, a break, a release. For some men, it's the first thing that restores a sense of control. Carl didn't make a big change overnight, but he began to approach this habit with less shame and more curiosity. He didn't rush, he didn't hide, he simply made space, a private, quiet space where he could care for himself in a way that no one else could. And over time, something shifted. He noticed fewer bathroom trips at night, less pressure, deeper sleep, and most of all, a sense of calm in his own skin that he hadn't felt since before the grief took hold. This isn't a magic cure, it won't fix everything, but for many older men, it's a forgotten tool, a gentle, natural rhythm that helps regulate hormones, flush out old fluid, and bring relief to an organ that's been working quietly in the background for decades. So if you've been feeling hesitant, ashamed, or unsure, know this: your body remembers what it needs. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do is simply let it. What your body is trying to tell you. Carl's journey reminded us that sometimes healing begins in silence, but silence doesn't mean absence. In fact, your body is speaking all the time. You just have to know how to listen. Every man over 60 should know this. Ejaculation isn't just about release. It's about communication. Each time you self-stimulate, your body gives you feedback through sensation, pressure, color, texture. Yet most men never pay attention. They look away, rush through it, or pretend it doesn't matter. But what if it does? Harold, 81, had always been in tune with his body, or so he thought. He walked every morning, ate oatmeal for breakfast, saw his doctor once a year, like clockwork. But one day, during a quiet moment alone, he noticed something that made his heart sink. The fluid was different, thicker, slightly pink. He tried to forget it, told himself it was nothing. But 2 weeks later, it happened again, and then again. That's when he told his daughter, and that's when he saw his doctor. It turned out to be a small blood vessel, nothing dangerous, but his doctor told him something he'd never heard before. The changes you notice in your semen might be the first warning signs your prostate sends you. For Harold, it was a relief. Not because the condition was mild, but because he had listened. He had caught it early. He had respected the signals. And those signals can come in many forms: cloudiness, a change in consistency, mild discomfort, an unusual smell, a sting afterward, or even shifts in sensitivity. They don't always mean something's wrong, but they always mean something's different. And in this phase of life, different deserves attention. That's what makes masturbation more than just physical. It's a tool for monitoring, a way to stay connected, to stay informed, and above all, to stay empowered. Too many older men ignore early signs until they become urgent. But what if you could catch a change before it becomes a problem? What if the simple act of tuning in, of observing yourself without judgment, was the difference between suffering in silence and stepping in with strength? Harold doesn't rush anymore. He takes his time. He notices how his body responds, and he sees that small ritual not just as pleasure, but as presence. Because when you notice the subtle changes, you give your body a voice, and in that voice, there is wisdom. The silent hormone that could be overworking your prostate. There's a reason so many men feel a slow, creeping discomfort in their lower body as they age. It's not just aging. It's not just diet. It could be DHT, a powerful hormone working overtime behind the scenes. DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, is a natural byproduct of testosterone. It plays a role in puberty, muscle growth, even body hair. But past a certain age, DHT often becomes too much of a good thing. And the prostate? That little gland is especially sensitive to it. Think of DHT like a loud neighbor who won't stop knocking. When levels are too high for too long, the prostate becomes overstimulated, constantly on, constantly responding. Over time, this can lead to swelling, tightness, and eventually what doctors call BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. Tom, 70, knows this story well. He was the kind of man who always looked for natural options first. He had a sticker on his fridge that read, "No prescriptions needed unless absolutely necessary." But despite his clean diet and daily walks, he started noticing something off. Urination became slower. Pressure lingered after. He'd leave the bathroom and feel like he needed to go again. His doctor suggested medication. But Tom asked a different question. Is there anything I can do before I go that route? That's when he learned about the link between ejaculation and DHT. Every time a man ejaculates, his body experiences a temporary drop in DHT. It's small, it doesn't last forever, but over time that dip, repeated regularly, can give the prostate room to breathe. It's like lifting pressure off a valve, just long enough to ease the strain. So Tom tried something different. He created a routine, nothing drastic, just intentional. Every 2 or 3 days, he made time for himself. Not rushed, not mechanical, just quiet, private time to care for his body in a new way. After a few weeks, the difference surprised him. He wasn't cured, but he was sleeping better. The urgency had eased, the discomfort lessened, and most of all, he felt in control again. No pills, no surgeries, just a small change that brought his hormones back into balance. DHT isn't bad, but too much for too long without relief, that's when it becomes a problem. And for many men, daily or regular ejaculation is the gentle pressure valve their body needs. It's a reminder that sometimes our bodies don't need more medication. They need space, rhythm, and respect. And when you give that to yourself, your prostate listens. Touching yourself, reclaiming yourself. When was the last time you touched your own body, not to fix something, but simply to be present with it? Most men carry a silent distance from their own touch. Years of shame, old ideas, and unspoken rules have taught them that masturbation is something to be hidden, rushed, erased, forgotten. But what if it could be something more? Linda, 69, never imagined she'd be part of a conversation about male sexuality. But after her divorce and years of living alone, she began exploring mindful touch as a form of healing for herself. That journey led her to teaching a class for seniors on body awareness. In one session, she said something that stayed with Tom ever since. What you touch with respect learns to trust you again. That sentence unlocked something. Tom began to wonder, what if those quiet moments alone didn't have to be hurried or mechanical? What if they could be a form of listening, a way to reconnect with the body that had carried him through war, fatherhood, loss, and now the vulnerability of age? He began setting aside intentional time, not for release but for reconnection. He dimmed the lights, took a warm bath, slowed his breath, and instead of trying to get it over with, he stayed with the sensations, noticing, breathing, thanking his body, even as it changed. In those moments, something shifted. He began to feel less shame, less distance. He no longer saw masturbation as something naughty or private. He began to see it as intimate, sacred. A time to check in, to feel, to release tension, not just from his prostate, but from the burden of silence he'd carried for decades. Too many men live in their heads, especially when they're grieving, anxious, or aging. The body becomes a stranger. But gentle, mindful touch is how that conversation begins again. This practice, when approached with softness, does more than lower hormone levels or reduce prostate pressure. It calms the nervous system, reduces cortisol, enhances sleep, and slowly rebuilds something that so many older men have lost, a sense of trust in their own hands. And that trust is everything. Because when you can be present with your own body, not as a chore, not as a task, but as an act of kindness, you begin to feel less alone. That's the medicine most of us have needed all along. The quiet strength beneath you. Kegel and the power of control. There's a part of your body you've probably never seen, but it holds more strength than you realize. It's your pelvic floor, a web of muscles sitting like a hammock beneath your bladder, your prostate, and your core. And when those muscles weaken, life changes in small but frustrating ways. You sneeze and leak. You laugh and clench. You get up from the couch and feel a strain deep in your lower belly. Suddenly, control is no longer something you can count on. George, 82, didn't like to talk about his health, not even with his son. He was a proud man, built his house with his own hands. But after his prostate surgery, he found himself wearing pads. I felt humiliated, he said softly. Not because I was leaking, but because I didn't know how to stop it. Then a nurse named Paula showed him something so simple, he almost laughed. They're called Kegels, she said. You do them sitting down. No one can even tell. Kegel exercises are tiny contractions of the pelvic floor muscles, the same ones you use to stop the flow of urine midstream. They don't require equipment, don't need a gym, don't take more than 5 minutes. But the impact? George did them twice a day, once with his morning coffee, once before bed. 3 weeks in, he noticed he could walk longer without urgency. He laughed without fear. He slept through the night. He didn't feel broken anymore. He felt strong, quietly, privately, and deeply. For men over 65, this is a game changer. Kegels not only help with urinary control, but they support the prostate, improve sexual function, and create a deeper awareness of the muscles most of us forget exist. You can do them now, as you're watching this. Gently tighten the muscles you'd use to stop urinating. Hold for 5 seconds, then release. Do it again and again. No one will know, but your body will. Because strength doesn't always look like muscles. Sometimes it looks like control, like calm, like quiet dignity. And the best part? You don't need a prescription. You don't need to tell anyone. You just need 5 minutes and the decision to try. George still does his every morning, not because he has to anymore, but because it reminds him, I'm still in charge of this body, and it still listens. The food you eat is talking to your prostate. Sometimes healing doesn't come in a bottle. Sometimes it's already in your kitchen, waiting on a cutting board, simmering in a pot, or resting quietly in your evening bowl of soup. Your prostate isn't just affected by age or hormones. It's also shaped day by day by what you put on your plate. Martha, 76, wasn't trying to fix anything. She just wanted her husband to sleep through the night. He had been waking up 3, sometimes 4 times to use the bathroom. She noticed he always seemed more restless after eating heavy, processed dinners, so she started small. She swapped the frozen meals for homemade tomato soup, added steamed spinach to his eggs, snuck in a handful of walnuts in his afternoon snack. Nothing fancy, just simple, clean food. And within 2 weeks, something changed. He was still waking once a night, but not 4 times. His urgency calmed. His mood lifted. He said, I feel like my body's not fighting me anymore. Martha smiled. She hadn't used medicine. She had used food. Science backs her up. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that helps reduce inflammation in the prostate. Fatty fish like salmon bring in omega-3s, which balance hormones and protect tissue. Leafy greens offer magnesium and folate, critical for cell repair and nerve function. Nuts and seeds carry zinc, which directly supports testosterone regulation. And it's not just about what you add, it's what you avoid. Processed meats, sugary snacks, refined oils, these foods fan the flames of inflammation, putting your prostate on the defense day after day. For older men already dealing with hormonal shifts, these foods don't just cause discomfort, they compound it. Tom, the man who said no prescriptions unless absolutely necessary, once told his friend, "You know what shocked me most? It wasn't that the right food made me feel better, it was how fast the wrong food made me worse." That's the power of nutrition. It's not just fuel, it's information. Every bite is a message your body receives. Are you sending it stress or support? And here's the good news. You don't need a complicated diet. You don't need a full pantry overhaul. You just need a few daily choices that say, I respect this body. I want to feel better. Even something as simple as a warm tomato soup at dinner can become your nightly medicine. No pills, no side effects, just love in a bowl. There's a quiet moment each night when the lights are off, the house has settled, and it's just you and your breath. That's when the truth speaks loudest. Not through words, but through feeling. Maybe it's the lingering ache in your lower back, or the way your bladder wakes you before the sun, or that subtle worry you carry, is something wrong and I just haven't noticed it yet? What if, instead of ignoring it, you chose to listen? Linda, now 70, had always been the kind who waited for pain to be obvious, waited for her doctor to bring it up, waited for someone else to confirm what her body had already whispered. But that changed the night she sat on the edge of her bed, hands resting on her belly, and said aloud, "I trust you." It sounds small, but for her, it was the beginning of everything. That night, she didn't take her usual sleeping pill. Instead, she took a warm bath, did 5 minutes of Kegels, and ate a small bowl of leafy greens with olive oil, and she slept. Deeply, fully, without interruption. That was 3 months ago. She hasn't needed the pills since. Because the truth is, healing rarely comes in a flash. It comes in layers, in habits, in quiet decisions made again and again, until your body finally sighs in relief and says, "Thank you." So if this video stirred something in you, if it reminded you that your health, your peace, your strength are still within reach, then let's make this real. Together. Type the number that speaks to your truth. Type 1 if you've ever woken up in the middle of the night due to pain or frequent urination. Type 2 if you've ever felt anxious walking alone because you're afraid of losing your balance. Type 3 if you've ever felt like your body isn't what it used to be and you want to take back control. And if you found even one idea here worth trying, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video, like it, send it to someone who needs to hear that they're not broken, that their body is still on their side, that they can take back control, naturally, gently, day by day. Because growing older isn't about decline, it's about returning to presence, to trust, to power. And your journey isn't over. It's just beginning. Let's walk it together.